I'd been grinding at Pinnacle Financial for 8 years. At 37, I was the kind of employee every company claims they want, showed up early, stayed late, and turned every project into gold. My corner cubicle overlooked the Chicago skyline, and I'd earned every inch of that view. I'd been carrying my team for months. When the Peterson account was falling apart, I worked weekends to save it. When the new compliance regulations hit, I created the training program that kept us audit-ready. My boss, Regional Manager Tom Bradley, loved taking credit for my wins during the monthly leadership calls. "Sarah's really been stepping up," he'd say, while I sat in the back of the conference room, invisible as always. But lately, something felt off. Tom had been scheduling more check-ins than usual. The company was doing well. Our Q3 numbers were the best in 5 years. I had personally brought in 3 major clients worth over $2 million in revenue. That Tuesday morning, Tom sent me a calendar invite that made my stomach drop. One-on-one discussion important. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m., right after lunch. No agenda. No context. I stared at my computer screen, my coffee getting cold. In 8 years, Tom had never called an important one-on-one without warning me what it was about. I'd seen this movie before. My friend Lisa got the same type of meeting right before they restructured her position. I tried to focus on the quarterly reports, but my mind kept wandering. Maybe it was finally my promotion. Maybe they were recognizing my contributions. Maybe Tom was finally going to recommend me for the senior account manager position that had been under review for 6 months. At 2:45 p.m., I grabbed my notepad and headed to Tom's office, my heels clicking against the polished floor. I had no idea that in 15 minutes, my entire career would change forever. But here's what Tom didn't know, and what would make this the biggest mistake of his career. Tom's office smelled like burnt coffee and cheap cologne. He didn't look up when I knocked, just gestured for me to sit while he finished typing something on his laptop. Classic power move, make me wait, establish dominance. "Sarah, thanks for coming in," he finally said, closing the laptop with a sharp click. "We need to talk about your compensation." My heart jumped. This was it, the recognition I'd been waiting for. "I'm glad you brought that up, Tom. I've been meaning to discuss my performance this quarter and—" "Actually," Tom interrupted, "we're going to need to make some adjustments. Effective immediately, we're reducing your salary by 15%. The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what?" "Budget constraints," Tom said, not meeting my eyes. "Company-wide cost-cutting measures. We're all making sacrifices." My hands clenched my notepad. "Tom, I brought in the Peterson account. I saved the Morrison deal. I created the entire compliance training program. My numbers are—" "Look, Sarah, I know you think you're indispensable, but the reality is different. Your performance has been adequate, not exceptional. We need team players, not prima donnas." The room started spinning. Adequate? Prima donna? I had given this company 8 years of my life. I'd missed my daughter's soccer games, cancelled dates, worked through migraines and family emergencies. And now Tom was sitting there, in his $1,000 suit, telling me I was adequate. "This is temporary, right?" I managed to ask. Tom shrugged. "We'll reassess in 6 months. Maybe a year. Depends on how the market performs." I felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart had been broken before. This was different. This was my faith in fairness, in hard work paying off, in loyalty being rewarded. "I'll need you to sign these documents," Tom said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "HR needs them by end of business today." I opened the folder. The new salary figure stared back at me. A 15% cut would drop me from $85,000 to $72,250. With my mortgage, my daughter's college fund, my mom's medical bills, it would be devastating. "Tom, I can't survive on this salary. I have responsibilities." "Everyone has responsibilities, Sarah. Maybe it's time to adjust your lifestyle. Cut back on the Starbucks, you know." The condescension in his voice was unbearable. I stood up, my legs shaky. "I need to think about this." "Nothing to think about. Sign the papers or clean out your desk. Your choice." I walked back to my cubicle in a daze. My co-workers avoided eye contact, News traveled fast in corporate America. I sat down, staring at my computer screen, feeling completely powerless. But what Tom didn't know was that 3 days earlier, I had received a phone call that would change everything. 3 days before Tom's ambush, I had been finishing up the quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but the area code was local. Sarah Martinez? This is Jennifer Walsh from Summit Strategies. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your LinkedIn profile. I glanced around the office. Personal calls weren't exactly forbidden, but they weren't encouraged either. How can I help you? I've been following your work at Pinnacle Financial. Very impressive. We're looking for a senior director of strategic accounts, and your name keeps coming up in our search. Senior director. My pulse quickened. That was 2 levels above my current position. I'm flattered, but I'm not actively looking. I understand. But would you be open to a conversation? No pressure, just coffee. I think you'd be surprised by what we can offer. I found myself saying yes. Something about Jennifer's tone, professional but warm, respectful in a way that felt foreign after years of Tom's condescension. We met at the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue the next morning. Jennifer was everything Tom wasn't, sharp, direct, but genuinely interested in my ideas. She listened when I talked about my vision for client relationship management. She asked thoughtful questions about my experience with compliance and risk assessment. Here's what I'm thinking, Jennifer said, sliding a folder across the small table. Senior director position, full strategic authority over our Midwest accounts. Your own team of 8 account managers. Complete benefits package, 4 weeks vacation, and a salary that reflects your actual worth. I opened the folder. The number at the top made my heart stop, $135,000. That's almost 60% more than I make now. It's market rate for someone with your experience and track record, plus performance bonuses that could add another $20,000 to $30,000 annually. I stared at the offer letter. Everything I'd been fighting for at Pinnacle, respect, recognition, financial security, was right there in black and white. I know this is sudden, Jennifer continued, but we need someone to start in 2 weeks. One of our major clients specifically requested someone with your background on the Peterson account. My head snapped up. You know about Peterson? Sarah, everyone in the industry knows about Peterson. You turned that disaster into a $2 million success story. Word gets around. Walking back to my office, I felt like I was floating. For the first time in years, I felt valued, wanted, respected. I hadn't planned to take the offer. I was going to talk to Tom, negotiate my own raise, maybe leverage the offer to finally get the promotion I deserved. But now, sitting in my cubicle with Tom's salary reduction papers in front of me, everything became crystal clear. I sat at my desk, staring at 2 pieces of paper. On my left, Tom's salary reduction documents, a 15% cut that would destroy my financial stability. On my right, Summit Strategies offer letter, a 60% increase that would change my life. The office buzzed with its usual afternoon energy. Janet from accounting was heating up leftover Chinese food in the break room. Mike from IT was arguing with someone about server maintenance. Normal corporate life continuing while my world had just imploded. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Emma. Mom, did you remember I need the college application fee money by Friday? Love you. 2 hearts. The application fee. Just $200, but with Tom's pay cut, even that would be a stretch. Emma was a junior at Northwestern, brilliant and driven, just like I used to be. I had promised her she'd never have to worry about money for school. Another text, this one from my mother. Mija, the doctor wants to start the new treatment next month. Insurance covers most of it, but there's still the copay. Don't worry about it if money's tight. I closed my eyes. My mother, who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through college, was now fighting diabetes and refusing help because she didn't want to be a burden. I opened my laptop and pulled up my budget spreadsheet. With the salary cut, I'd have to choose between Emma's college expenses and my mother's medical bills. The mortgage payment would eat up most of my income. The Honda Civic that was already making weird noises would have to last another 2 years. But with the Summit offer, I grabbed my phone and stepped into the empty conference room. Jennifer Walsh answered on the first ring. Jennifer, it's Sarah Martinez. About that offer. Sarah, I was hoping you'd call. What are you thinking? I'm thinking yes. But I need to ask, is the start date flexible? I'd prefer to give 2 weeks' notice. Jennifer laughed. Sarah, you're exactly the kind of professional we want. Of course 2 weeks is fine. I'll have the formal offer documents ready by tomorrow morning. Actually, I said, feeling bolder than I had in years, could you make it 3 weeks? I want to finish the Morrison project properly. They deserve a smooth transition. Done. I'll email you the paperwork tonight. Welcome to Summit Strategies, Sarah. You're going to love it here. I hung up and walked back to my desk. Tom's office door was closed, probably on another one of his important calls where he'd take credit for someone else's work. I looked at the salary reduction papers one more time, then folded them neatly and slipped them into my desk drawer. I had a different plan now. Opening my laptop, I began typing. Dear Tom, thank you for our conversation today. I've given your proposal careful consideration. But I wasn't going to send it yet. First, I had 3 weeks of work to finish. 3 weeks to document every process, every client relationship, every system I'd built. 3 weeks to make sure my departure would be felt. And Tom? Tom had no idea what was coming. I became a woman on a mission. For 3 weeks, I played the perfect employee while quietly orchestrating my exit strategy. I started documenting everything. The client contact database I'd built from scratch, backed up to my personal drive. The Peterson account recovery process I'd developed, detailed in a comprehensive guide that I'd take with me. The compliance training program that saved the company millions in potential fines, meticulously documented. But I wasn't stealing. I was protecting my own work, my own intellectual property that Tom had always claimed as his own. You're working late again, Tom said one evening, passing my cubicle around 7 p.m. Good to see you taking the feedback seriously. I smiled sweetly. Just making sure everything's properly documented. You know how important thoroughness is. Tom nodded approvingly and walked away, completely missing the subtle sarcasm in my voice. Week 2, I began my real masterpiece. I scheduled meetings with every major client, ostensibly for quarterly check-ins. But really, I was saying goodbye. Mr. Peterson, I wanted to personally thank you for trusting me with your account recovery. It's been the highlight of my career here. Sarah, you saved our company. I've told everyone about your work. If you ever need anything, a reference, a testimonial, anything, you call me directly. I had similar conversations with Morrison Industries, Hartwell Corp., and Madison Financial. By the end of week 2, I had a collection of glowing testimonials and personal references from clients worth over $8 million in annual revenue. Week 3 was when things got interesting. I had trained my temporary replacement, a sweet but inexperienced junior associate named Kevin. I'd been thorough, professional, and helpful. But there were certain details I'd omitted from my training. Like the fact that Peterson's CEO only returned calls on Tuesday mornings. Or that Morrison's procurement director had a standing policy about email response times. Or that the Hartwell contract had a specific clause about quarterly reporting formats that could void the entire agreement if missed. These weren't trade secrets. They were relationship details, personal touches that made the difference between adequate service and exceptional service. The kind of details that Tom had always dismissed as hand-holding. On Friday afternoon of my 3rd week, I was finishing up my final reports when my phone rang. Jennifer Walsh from Summit Strategies. Sarah, I have some interesting news. We just landed 3 new clients, and they specifically requested you as their primary contact. Apparently, word is getting around about your move. I smiled. Oh really? Anyone I know? Well, there's Peterson Industries, Morrison Corp., and Hartwell Financial. They said they've worked with you before and want to continue the relationship. My smile widened. That's wonderful, Jennifer. I look forward to working with them again. Monday morning, I would start my new job. But first, I had one final meeting with Tom. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I walked into Tom's office carrying a manila folder and wearing my best navy blue suit, the one I'd bought for job interviews but never needed to use. Sarah, good morning, Tom said, not looking up from his computer. I hope you're ready to hit the ground running with that new attitude. Actually, Tom, I wanted to talk to you about my attitude. Something in my voice made him look up. I was standing straighter than usual, my shoulders back, my chin raised. There was something different about me, confidence, maybe. Or defiance. I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past 3 weeks, I continued, about my performance, my value to this company, and my future. Tom leaned back in his chair. Good. I hope you've gained some perspective. Oh, I have. I've gained tremendous perspective. I placed the manila folder on his desk. This is my formal resignation letter. My last day is today. Tom's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then anger. Sarah, you can't just quit. We have contracts, obligations. Which I've fulfilled completely. I've documented all my processes, trained my replacement, and transitioned all active accounts. Everything is in order. This is ridiculous. You're making an emotional decision based on one difficult conversation. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come crawling back. Tom, I interrupted, I'm not walking out. I'm walking up. I opened the folder and pulled out a business card. Summit Strategies. Senior Director of Strategic Accounts. I start this afternoon. Tom stared at the card like it was written in a foreign language. Summit? They're our biggest competitor. I know. You can't take our clients. I'm not taking anything. But I can't control who chooses to follow me. Tom's phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. You might want to answer that, I said calmly. Tom picked up the phone. Tom Bradley. I watched his face change as he listened. The color drained from his cheeks. What do you mean they're terminating the contract? Peterson has been with us for 3 years. I smiled. Actually, Peterson has been with me for 3 years. There's a difference. Tom hung up the phone. It immediately rang again. That'll be Morrison Industries, I said, checking my watch. I scheduled their call for 9:15. They're very punctual. Sarah, wait. Let's talk about this. Maybe we can work something out. What's there to work out, Tom? You told me I was adequate. Not exceptional. A prima donna who needed to cut back on Starbucks. I picked up my purse. Well, Summit Strategies thinks I'm worth $135,000 a year, plus bonuses. They think I'm exceptional. Tom's mouth fell open. $135,000? That's almost 60% more than my original salary. 90% more than what you offered me after the cut. I headed for the door. Oh, and Tom? They're giving me 4 weeks paid vacation and my own team of 8 account managers. Sarah, please. We can match their offer. I turned back one final time. Tom, 3 weeks ago, you could have offered me a 10% raise and I would have been grateful. I would have stayed loyal, worked hard, and made you look good for years to come. Instead, you chose to cut my pay and insult my intelligence. I paused at the door. Some mistakes you can't undo. Six months later, I was sitting in my corner office at Summit Strategies, reviewing quarterly reports that would have made my old boss weep. The Chicago skyline looked even better from the 40th floor. My assistant knocked on the door. Sarah, you have a call on line 2. Tom Bradley from Pinnacle Financial. I almost laughed. Tell him I'm in a meeting. I did. He said it's urgent and he'll hold. I sighed and picked up the phone. Hello, Tom. Sarah, thank God. Listen, I need your help. The Peterson account is doing wonderfully, thanks for asking. We've expanded their portfolio by 30% since they moved to Summit. That's great. But I'm calling about the Morrison situation. They're threatening to audit their contract with us, and we can't find the compliance documentation. I know you created the original framework. I did. And I documented everything before I left. It should all be in the files. We looked. Kevin says there are gaps. Technical details that weren't included in the transition materials. I smiled. Tom, I provided comprehensive training and documentation. If there are gaps, perhaps Kevin should have asked more detailed questions. Sarah, please. I know we didn't part on the best terms, but we could really use your expertise here. We'd be willing to pay consulting fees. I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid I'm too busy. You see, when clients trust you with their business, you can't just pass them off to junior associates and hope for the best. There was a long pause. Sarah, I may have been too harsh during our last conversation. I didn't fully appreciate your contributions. Tom, you called me adequate. You told me to cut back on Starbucks. You cut my salary during what I thought was a performance review. My voice was calm, professional. Those weren't just words. They were choices. You chose to undervalue me, and I chose to find someone who wouldn't. What if we offered you your old position back, with the raise you wanted? Senior Director of Strategic Accounts? Well, I'd have to talk to corporate about the title, but... Tom, I already have that title. Plus a team, plus a salary that reflects my actual worth, plus clients who respect my expertise. I looked out at the skyline. Plus a boss who says thank you instead of you're welcome. Sarah. Tom, I have to go. I have a meeting with 3 new clients. They heard about our work with Peterson and Morrison and want to explore moving their accounts from. I paused dramatically. Well, from smaller firms that might not appreciate their value. After I hung up, I sat back in my leather chair and smiled. My daughter Emma had gotten into her dream graduate program, fully funded. My mother's medical bills were covered. The Honda Civic had been replaced with a reliable Toyota Camry. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer Walsh. Sarah, the board wants to discuss expanding your team. Are you free for lunch? I, Sarah Martinez, Senior Director of Strategic Accounts, was definitely free for lunch. Some days, the best revenge really is living well. And getting a 60% raise doesn't hurt either. Sometimes the best career move is knowing when to stop fighting for respect and start demanding it elsewhere. Tom learned that lesson the hard way, and it cost him everything.